Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, and this presentation is going to look at a topic that has increasingly featured in recent exams, the Spanish Civil War. Now, the first thing to point out is that this was a civil war, a Spanish affair. Civil war in Spain broke out in 1936 when a coalition, a mixture of parties from the right, including extreme nationalists and a small fascist party, sought to overthrow the left-wing socialist government and its coalition of supporters, which included communists. But in the sense that a dictatorship was imposed after the nationalists had won, it can also be seen as reflecting another divide that was consuming the rest of Europe. Liberal democracy versus dictatorships of one kind or another. So, why did Italy and Germany get involved? It didn't threaten them, they didn't directly border Spain, and affairs in Spain weren't going to unsettle things domestically, in Germany and Italy that is. But Spain could be strategically important if a fellow traveller, a fellow ideologue, was to take power. So let's first look at possible B questions. Why was Hitler involved in the Spanish Civil War? Why was involvement in the Spanish Civil War of benefit to Hitler? Why was German and Italian involvement in the Spanish Civil War important? Well, Spain, led by Franco, would have a number of important advantages for Germany and Italy. It would weaken British and French influence in the Mediterranean, while strengthening Italy's position. Gibraltar would most likely be taken from the British, though in fact it wasn't, which would close their access to the Mediterranean and could prevent French ships from moving in and out of its waters, and also make the transport of French colonial troops from northern Africa considerably more difficult. It would make it a lot easier for Mussolini to grab his Mediterranean empire. It would also close Britain's access to the Suez Canal, and so the short route to India and the Far East, and even more important, to the oil fields of the Middle East. What's more, France would also be squeezed top and tail by fascist or fascist-like powers across its borders. Whilst the alternative, a left-leaning Spain, would probably have been as big a disadvantage to the fascist powers as a right-leaning Spain would be advantageous. It didn't work out the way Italy and Germany had hoped. Spain remained neutral throughout World War II, but nobody was to know that in 1939. There were other reasons, but they overlap with what Hitler got from the war. So let's have a look at a couple of possible C questions. German involvement in the Spanish Civil War was important to Hitler's war plans. How far do you agree with this statement? Always explaining your answer. German involvement in the Spanish Civil War was more important for Hitler than remilitarization of the Rhineland. Or in another question, it could be the takeover of Czechoslovakia. How far do you agree with this statement? Always explaining your answer. So let's look at more of those reasons for getting involved and what Hitler got out of the war. And it was Hitler that got more out of the war than Mussolini. Of great benefit to the German war machine was the iron ore, pyrites used in explosives, copper, mercury, zinc, tin and tungsten, all valuable war materials that the Germans received in return for their support. Hitler also saw the chance to test Germany's military hardware and tactics, and give his armed forces some combat experience too. For example, it gave them a chance to test blitzkrieg tactics and carpet bombing, which proved to be very successful. It showed that an enemy could be defeated quickly, which Germany would need to do. And indeed, it would be a key factor in Hitler's success in Poland and in Western Europe, including the defeat of France. Of course, the same applied to Mussolini, but whereas the Germans seized their opportunity, the Italians didn't fare very well in the war. And all the time, it would also divert the attention of Britain and France, as well as the League of Nations, from Hitler's plans for Central Europe. Germany and Italy would not get the support from Franco that they thought they were entitled to, but both Britain and France were very much weakened by the war. France was in a very weak position strategically, with Germany to its north, Italy to the east, and now Spain to the south. What's more, with the war going on, Germany had joined with Austria, and Hitler also had acquired most of Czechoslovakia. And through all of these major events, the League of Nations was shown to be utterly powerless. Meanwhile, the ties between Mussolini and Hitler had been strengthened. The Rome-Berlin axis had been formed the year the Civil War began, the Pact of Steel the year it ended. There would be another unanticipated huge gain for Hitler as a result of the war. The Soviet Union would have liked to intervene in an anti-fascist alliance, possibly France too, but Britain was determined to stay out of the war, fearing that it might escalate into a general European war. This is what had happened after Sarajevo, and Britain, more than anything, wanted to avoid a repeat of that. But they also didn't want to ally with the Communist Soviet Union. And we can draw a direct line from the Spanish Civil War, taking in the Munich Agreement, ending with the Nazi-Soviet Pact. It couldn't be seen at the time, but it can by historians. But before I end this presentation, let's also consider the A questions that you may face. Describe Germany's involvement in the Spanish Civil War. How did Hitler make use of the Spanish Civil War? What were the consequences of the Spanish Civil War for peace in Europe? I think I've already provided material that helps with these potential questions, but let's have a look at a little more. The Italians had nearly 50,000 men in Spain at any given time, and sent more than 600 fighter planes, as well as artillery, small tanks and machine guns. The Germans sent their Condor Legion, numbering more than 5,500 men, and planes that were to become very well known and feared in World War II, the Messerschmitt, the Heinkel and the Junkers, the dive bombers that were to terrify Europe in the German Blitzkrieg. The Germans also sent 200 tanks as well as artillery and some 10,000 troops. And, as was hoped, they did indeed test both their weapons and their tactics, to very good effect. The German Condor Legion was used in the notorious air raid on the small town of Guernica in April 1937. The attack involved some 50 aircraft. It came on market day in 2 waves, both in full daylight. The first, a low-level attack, bombed the town and strafed people as they fled. The second, a high-level attack, dropped incendiary bombs. The town was obliterated, the first in history to be destroyed from the air. More than a third of the town's population of 7,000 were left dead or wounded. It was a foretaste of the blitzkrieg that Europe was to face. So, a useful presentation for you. At least I hope so. As always, I do thank you for listening. Don't forget there are my ebooks on Amazon if you're interested. And there is my website, History Made Easier. That's there to help you too. Good luck with your studies. Cheers.